The Epstein saga is becoming a political dud and a nothing burger, says CNN data guru Harry Enten. For instance, Google searches for Epstein-related information are down 89% from just 3 weeks ago. Here's Enten explaining the situation.
What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
This has been for 3 weeks now.
Exactly. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name. That's been trading off between Taros and Vladimir Putin, with obviously the meeting coming up later this week. But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing burger.
Enten also suggested that Trump's approval rating is still holding steady and Americans have lost interest in the Epstein case. Let's take a listen.
Trump's approval rating in July of 2025, it was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where he was in his first term at this point, he was at 37%. So he's 7 points higher, very much in a different political universe now, significantly higher in terms of his overall approval rating than he was at this point in his first term. 0 respondents said that the Epstein case was the top issue. How about among independents? 0 independents said that. And among Republicans, and therefore overall, just a single one.
Meanwhile, a federal judge in New York rejected a request by the Justice Department to unseal grand jury transcripts from an investigation into Ghislaine Maxwell. The judge, Paul Engelmayer, wrote about his decision, quote, "It's an entire premise that the Maxwell grand jury materials would bring to light meaningful new information about Epstein and Maxwell's crimes or the government's investigation into them is demonstrably false." Engelmayer added the Justice Department was being, quote, "disingenuous in making that argument for disclosure." Justice Department, so why don't you release your documents that you have in your possession, like the Treasury Department documents, so we can follow the money. I don't care about a Google search. Obviously, this is not the #1 issue for Americans. Americans are trying to buy groceries for their family and children, like I am, trying to enjoy their life, trying to negotiate their rent like you are when it goes up an astronomical amount. There are way bigger issues while we pan this out. But I doubt, and I disagree, especially from the same people that don't like to listen to polls. This is all Republicans arguing that all the polls about Hillary Clinton,
polls.
blah, blah, blah. No, I don't want to hear when the polls are convenient.
I believe the polls.
No, and I don't want to hear about this, okay? Because I think people are still interested in it. I've watched enough podcasts to know. I've listened to Joe Rogan scream and say, this is his line in the sand. I believe that's a quote. Nobody's done with this except for you and a small part of the MAGA party that decided we have better fish to fry. Donald Trump has thrown so much pasta at the wall. Obviously, he really doesn't want us to focus here. And we are so blindly loyal that we're going to keep going forward. And for my last point, there's a Washington Post poll from just a week ago that 61% of Americans think that there's some, quote, embarrassing information about President Donald Trump inside of those Epstein files, and that's why he's not releasing them. So more than half of the country wants to know, well, what's going on here? Where there's smoke, there's fire. This is making us uncomfortable. Whether people jumped on the bandwagon late or were interested in this from the beginning, people should come forward because there's serious allegations here and involvement possibly by some of the people leading our country and beyond.
Let me ask you a question.
Please, I love a question.
Jeffrey who?
You're on the wrong side of history. This is crazy.
No, I'm on Trump's side, and that always ends up being the right side. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, he was right about this from the beginning. Lots of information had been released. His associates took things too far and overpromised and underdelivered, which is always a big political mistake. They have to have some accountability for that. In particular, Pam Bondi screwed up so massively. I don't even understand how she can possibly save face at this point, but we're moving on. There's not. We know Trump associated with Epstein. We know that already. There's nothing more to know. They had an association. Then they had a falling out over. Now we know it was Epstein actually stole his employee Virginia Giuffre, and then had the compromising sexual situation with her. Epstein did, not Trump. Epstein, and that's that.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
If you were to ask me, Lindsey, what did you do last night? And then I bring up a different topic. And then you ask me again tomorrow and I bring up another different topic. And then I bring up a completely egregious, dramatic topic. This is what happened in the last few weeks. So we had an entire Russiagate situation that you're going to talk about what no one cares about. No one cares about Obama going to jail because he's not. Right? That was a waste of our time.
Tulsi Gabbard. That the president ordered
his intelligence by master to reach a different conclusion. No, I think that he looked into something that he thought was not appropriate and did the research that was appropriate by a bipartisan committee. That's what I think. But also, I think
Obama said,
Tulsi,
I don't like that Trump just won this legitimately.
Wait,
Let's blame
Tulsi
the
Gabbard
Russians."
barged into a press conference and said, "Oh, I have some breaking news." Guess what? No one's talking about that anymore. Look at the search
No one's
history for
talking
that.
about it.
I mean, it's like
They're talking about it on Fox and Newsmax and.
it's still not as relevant as it was when it was all over the place a week ago, right? It's not the new thing because you know what
I think
happened?
our viewers
Trump,
care. Our
Trump found
videos on
another-
that have done very well.
Well, Trump found another big issue. It's D.C. It's that when the Doge staffer was hurt, he decided, oh, I'm going to jump on this D.C. crime issue. So he does so much like, look this way, look this way, look this way, that obviously people are going to start focusing on the latest news. That's what we do as people in this industry. That's what people do at home. That's what podcasters do. But at the end of the day, Epstein is an overarching issue that will stand the test of time, especially as these subpoenas happen and we start seeing people come before Congress. So I know that this is not going away, no matter how many times you say it out loud. Trump is really good at repeating things over and over again until they're accepted. But you know what? When you have other people holding them accountable, like a bipartisan group of people that want to see this through, I don't think that we're just going to let this go because I think people deserve answers to the questions they've been asking for more than a year.
Well, I mean, they deserve answers from the people who are proximate to Trump, who promised them something that they had no intention of giving. Yeah, I don't disagree that if you're really into this story and you were convinced by Dan Bongino or Kash Patel that there was some list of powerful people, probably Democrats from the right-wing perspective, who were involved with Epstein and that was hidden and you're about to get that, I see why you're upset. I mean, I understand why you're frustrated and feel misled by the administration if that's you, because they made it sound like there were all these powerful people who'd been protected by the government, or why that was. I have questions still about Jeffrey Epstein's connections to intelligence. Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously through her father, had a connection to Israeli intelligence. That's true. I want to know more about that. I want to know more about how the deal came about for Epstein initially. I'm still interested in all those
How
subjects.
Epstein even got wealthy? We're like, we want to understand that fully, right? How do you go?
Yeah,
from,
but he didn't get wealthy from sexual stuff.
Yeah, I know, but he could get wealthy by people paying him because he had something on them, right? So they invested into his company.
He was absurdly wealthy. That was.
Yeah, but
He was a finance. I mean, it's weird, but.
Yeah, it's very weird. And you don't accept anything else weird. So that's what I'm saying. You're just like letting this one slide. And I just want to understand, like, you're that blindly allegiant to whatever Trump says that you're going to be like, okay, it's time to move on. That's to me ridiculous. You had a firm stance on this. You need to stand 2 feet planted in the ground in your firm stance. You cannot just abandon something that you talk so much about. You went on and on and on and on. You're leaving Joe Rogan hanging.
About it now.
So don't be surprised when Joe Rogan kind of quits the party and goes over to the next person that's, Bernie Sanders.
Look, I subsequently learned more from
you're leaving
reading,
him hanging.
No, I'll tell you exactly why. It's not just that I do whatever Trump. Well, obviously I don't just do whatever Trump does because I disagree with him all the time. It's Michael Tracy, who's a friend of mine. He's an independent reporter who's been doggedly covering this, and he's pretty thorough. And I don't always agree with him, but if I disagree with him, I have to do a lot of work to figure out why I think he's wrong because he's so thorough. And he's just been publishing nonstop about how so many of the accusers in the Epstein story are just obviously frauds and liars who have been making money off false accusations of powerful people. And he has the receipts for that, and that has shifted my perspective a bit. And I encourage people to, maybe we can have him on, he can explain it to you.
There are actual victims that, that's why Ghislaine Maxwell's even in jail, right? Like there are actual victims. So I think that even by publishing the wrong people, it still diminishes why women don't even speak out. So I think that
okay, but the main victim,
you can find anything to back up your claim, especially given today's time, right? Oh, here's an example of how many people might have convinced others that
the main victim, Virginia Giuffre, recanted her accusation against Alan Dershowitz. And that is, I don't know, if you make a bunch of claims and then you later say, oh, but that one, I was lying about that, or I misremembered that. Doesn't that speak to your credibility?
Well, we'll see.
I think it does.
When Ghislaine Maxwell speaks up, we'll speak her credibility. John Leguizamo is going after ex-Superman Dean Cain. We'll tell you why next. We'll be right back after this.